misdemeanor site.
I couldn't take it anymore. I cut her throat. Officers rushed to a parked car. Inside, an elderly man, hands soaked in blood. Beside him, a motionless woman. At 93 years old, James Pate should have been living out his final days in peace. Instead, he was standing over the body of his wife, confessing to one of the most brutal crimes his small town had ever seen. To their neighbors, James and Cheryl Pate were the picture of stability, a quiet, devoted couple who had been together for decades. But behind the front door of their Pekin, Illinois home, something darker was brewing. Neighbors interviewed on camera had this to say: they were friendly, but you could hear them fighting sometimes. Real loud. According to the second neighbor, we occasionally hear disputes between them but thought it was just normal marriage stuff. We never imagined they've grown so far apart. After more than 50 years of marriage, Cheryl had made a decision that shook James to his core. She was leaving him. The divorce papers were filed. And for James, it felt like his entire life was slipping away. On September 2nd, 2025, Cheryl agreed to meet James in the family car. Maybe to talk, maybe to reconcile. But what began as a conversation quickly turned into confrontation. For minutes, the argument raged inside the confined space of the car. Years of resentment, regret, and rage boiled over. And then, in a single moment, James Pate reached for the weapon he had been keeping close by. "You ruined everything. I can't do this anymore." In a flash of steel, the marriage that had lasted half a century came to a violent end. The blade slashed across Cheryl's throat. The woman James had once vowed to love and protect collapsed beside him. When officers arrived, James Pate didn't run. He didn't resist. He just sat there, covered in his wife's blood. But what could drive a 93-year-old man, frail, widowed, nearly at the end of his life, to commit such a brutal act? Was it a crime of passion, or something planned long before the drive? In court, the prosecutor argues, this was not a sudden outburst. This was murder, deliberate, calculated, and planned. To the world, James Pate was a 93-year-old man in failing health. But prosecutors claimed he was also a killer who knew exactly what he was doing. For years, their marriage had been unraveling. Friends say Cheryl spoke often of arguments, bitter words, sometimes even fear. In an interview with Cheryl's close friend, she lamented that. "Cheryl told me once, James once threatened that, if she ever tried to leave him, he'll kill her. I thought she was exaggerating. Now I wish I'd listened closer." Neighbor number 3. Sometimes it sounded like plates crashing. It wasn't just bickering. It was rage. And then came the breaking point: divorce papers. At 80 years old, Cheryl wanted freedom. But for James, divorce meant humiliation and loss. Court records reveal Cheryl had already begun the process of leaving James behind. The assets, the home, the life they had built, all on the line. For someone James' age, the prospect of being alone, abandoned, can feel like a death sentence. He wasn't just losing a wife. He was losing his identity. And so, James prepared for what he told himself was inevitable. Police detectives walk investigators through evidence in a dim room. Photographs of the car interior splattered with blood. She fought back. The wounds on her hands showed it. But she never stood a chance. The coroner confirmed Cheryl suffered multiple sharp force injuries, not just one strike, but repeated violence. And prosecutors discovered something chilling. James admitted he had kept. This was not a man who snapped. This was a man who planned, who waited, who chose. But just when investigators thought they understood the crime, James Pate opened his mouth. And what he confessed left even seasoned detectives stunned. The chilling audio of James Pate's voice fills the silence. James Pate says, "I've been thinking about this for a long time. I just couldn't take it anymore." Narrator, somber, deliberate. At 93 years old, James Pate confessed to killing his wife. But his words left investigators asking a haunting question. Was this the act of a man consumed by madness or by malice? Detective asks, "James, why did you do it?" James Pate's suggestion. Flat. "I thought about it for days. I knew the knife was there. She kept talking about leaving me, and I couldn't take it anymore." His words were not the frantic ramblings of a confused old man. They were calm, clear, intentional. This wasn't dementia. This wasn't confusion. He described planning, waiting, and choosing the exact moment. That's not impulse. That's premeditation. The trial of James Pate was unlike any the county had seen. A 93-year-old defendant, accused of murder so brutal, some questioned if prison even made sense. Age does not excuse murder. 93 or 33, James Pate knew exactly what he was doing. She trusted him. She gave him her life. And he ended it in the most violent way imaginable. Defense attorney leans forward, soft voice. Defense attorney explained to the court that he is a frail man. He may not survive the next year. Does justice mean sending him to die behind bars? The courtroom was divided. Was James Pate a pitiful old man, or a cold-blooded murderer? The judge's verdict: we, the jury, find the defendant, James E. Pate, guilty of first-degree murder. With the verdict, the case was closed. But the questions were not. James Pate now faces life in prison, a sentence that, at 93, may well mean he will never walk free again. This was not just the end of a marriage. It was the end of two lives, one taken in violence, the other condemned to fade away behind prison walls. James Pate, 93, awaits sentencing. He faces the rest of his life in prison. Cheryl Pate, 80, is remembered by family as a loving mother and friend. In the end, the truth of what happened inside that car may never be fully understood. Was it madness? Or was it murder? Only James Pate knows.